The mystery of the Phantom of the Louvre has fascinated people for over 150 years. To this day, no one knows who the author was or even if the author was male or female. The author lived in the 1800s and wrote a series of letters to the police authorities in Paris, claiming that they had committed several murders. These letters are still kept secret to this day. So why is this case still unsolved after all this time? And what did these letters say anyway? Welcome to my channel. Today we will travel back in time to Paris in the 1800s to investigate the strange case of the Phantom of the Louvre. If you like strange crimes, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any new videos. Let's get started. In the 1830s, Paris was a city of great beauty, culture, and art. However, behind the magnificent facades and cobblestone streets lurked poverty, hunger, and crime. In the dark and narrow alleys, pickpockets and beggars fought over scraps of food while the Seine River teemed with dead bodies. It was in this turbulent era that a series of brutal murders shocked the city of love. A killer had been stalking the streets, primarily targeting young women. His modus operandi was always the same. He would strangle his victims until they blacked out, then throw them into the river. Eventually, the police managed to catch up to him. But when they brought the alleged killer before the judge, it turned out that he wasn't guilty. He had an alibi and could prove it. The real murderer was still out there. For many years, the police were unable to find any leads in the case. Then suddenly, everything changed. One day, a series of anonymous letters began arriving at the police station. The sender of the letters called himself or herself the Phantom of the Louvre. The writer claimed to be the very person the police were looking for. But why confess to being a murderer by writing letters to the police? Wouldn't it have been easier to simply disappear? You're right. It does sound odd. But the author of the letters actually made it easier for the police to catch the killer. That was the whole point of the letters. The author wanted to be caught. But why? Was the Phantom of the Louvre insane? Well, not exactly. But the author did suffer from mental health issues. And we know this because some of the letters contained detailed descriptions of the crimes the Phantom had committed. And that meant that the police now had evidence that directly linked the crimes together. This gave them reason to suspect that a serial killer was on the loose. But before we go further into the contents of these bizarre letters, I want to ask you to take a moment to give this video a thumbs up. Now let's continue. To understand the impact the Phantom of the Louvre had on the police investigation, we must first examine the letters themselves. Historians have since discovered 47 of these mysterious letters. They were written between 1836 and 1837. Some were sent from Paris, but others were sent from places as far away as Marseille and Lille. The author of the letters seemed to be everywhere at once. The Phantom knew every single detail of the crimes the police were investigating. He described how he chose his victims, how he carried them away and disposed of their bodies. In one letter, the Phantom wrote, "I have done some bad things and wish to see myself judged by my peers." In another letter, he said, "I am innocent of the crime of which I am accused, but I admit that I strangled 2 women. Other letters contained more lurid details. For example, the Phantom claimed that he had thrown 3 corpses into the Seine River, where they were later recovered. He also claimed that he had buried the other victims along the banks of the river. The police found these graves and exhumed the bodies, but none of the remains could be linked back to the victims. But the strangest part about the letters was that the Phantom didn't just claim to have committed the murders that the police were investigating. He also took credit for a series of older, similar murders that had been committed in the area going all the way back to 1824. These letters practically forced the police to take the Phantom seriously. Could this mysterious person really be responsible for all of these gruesome crimes? Or was he trying to divert the police's attention away from himself? As I mentioned earlier, the Phantom claimed to have buried some of his victims along the banks of the Seine. The police followed up on this lead and searched the area, but they couldn't find any trace of the bodies. Just when they were about to give up, they received another letter from the Phantom. In this letter, he gave them detailed instructions on where to find the bodies, so once again, the police went back out and dug in the dirt, this time in the exact spot the phantom indicated. And to their absolute shock, they found a pair of women's shoes and a handkerchief. These items matched the description of what the victims were wearing, but that wasn't all. The police also found the body of a young woman. She had been wrapped in a red cloth, the same type of cloth that the phantom had described in his letters. With this new evidence, the police finally believed that the phantom was telling the truth. They had a serial killer on their hands. But there was still one big question left unanswered. Who was the Phantom of the Louvre? The police had no idea. All they knew was that the killer had a vast knowledge of Paris and its surrounding areas. He also seemed to be familiar with the police force and the judicial system. The killer was well-educated and clearly intelligent. He understood how to manipulate the police and the media to do his bidding. Now let's fast forward to today. What happened to the case after this discovery? Well, to this day, the police haven't found the identity of the Phantom. However, they did catch one man who fit the description of the Phantom. His name was Louis Ledru. The police arrested him based on the fact that he was the only person who fit the description of the Phantom. But when they interrogated him, they couldn't get him to confess. So they had to let him go. This frustrated the police, who had finally caught up to the elusive killer, only to have him slip through their fingers. However, they had one final trick up their sleeves. They decided to use Ledru's own brother against him. The police went to the man's house and told him that they knew he was involved in a series of recent crimes. They also informed him that they had evidence to convict him. At that point, the man broke down and confessed to everything. He revealed that he had helped the Phantom dispose of some of the bodies, but he insisted that he wasn't involved in the murders themselves. According to the man, the Phantom was a former notary who had lost his job due to embezzlement. Despite having all of this information, the police still haven't been able to crack the case. Perhaps they didn't want to waste time tracking down the notary and verifying his story. After all, they had caught the man they thought was the Phantom, or maybe they simply didn't believe the brother's confession. We may never know for sure. As the years passed, the case of the Phantom of the Louvre was gradually forgotten. But in recent years, it has experienced a revival. Researchers are using modern forensic techniques to re-examine the evidence in the case. They hope to finally put the mystery of the Phantom to rest once and for all. What do you think? Do you think the police arrested the wrong man? Or was the brother telling the truth? And what was the real motive behind the letters? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Also, check out these other videos I think you'll like, and remember to subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching.